Good afternoon. Please continue to do what you're doing, enjoying the food. And my official role here is to welcome you to the annual meeting of Trinity Episcopal Church. Hi, Kayla. Hi. So I'd like to do that. So on behalf of the vestry and Matt, welcome. So I wanted to, I hope you remember when you were a kid. Who remembers doing this? Here is the church. Here is the steeple. What do we do? And who's there? The people are there. That's absolutely right. And to me, in my 7 years I've been here, what makes Trinity so absolutely special is the people and the people inside. The opportunity that I've had of the last couple of annual meetings, I've stated that there's just such a whole group of amazing people here at Trinity that we get to worship with every Sunday and do the good work of Trinity all throughout the year. So that's my way of saying thank you. We are so blessed to do the work of the Lord together here at Trinity. And then the other thing that just struck me before we move forward is how awesome is it to hear. It seems like we've got a whole bunch of new kids in church on Sundays. And I just love that. I love the noise of youngness in our church. It's just so wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Matt and we're going to start our program. Our hope is to get you out by midnight. So, or maybe 11 p.m. We'll see. But no, we're going to try to be on time and try to be cognizant of your time as we work through what we need to do. So Matt?
Thanks, John. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God of unchangeable power and eternal light, look favorably on your whole church, that wonderful and sacred mystery. By the effectual working of your providence, carry out in tranquility the plan of salvation. Let the whole world see and know that things which were cast down are being raised up, and things which had grown old are being made new, and that all things are being brought to their perfection by the one through whom all things were made, your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. So I'm going to start my rector's reflections in a sort of old school way with just a mention of some, you might call them vital statistics. Things like worship attendance and numbers of baptisms and that sort of thing. Once upon a time, that might have been a whole rector's report. But these days, it's a little different. Anyway, but I do want to start with some of that. I'm really pleased because our worship, our worship attendance numbers have held basically steady, slight decline over the last 5 years, but our average Sunday attendance has declined by like 2 or 3 people a year for the last 5 years. Compared to churches across the country, holding steady is the new getting ahead. We're doing great in that regard. And there are many other signs of vitality in the life of the parish, not least of which is that most of the people who are in church today are with you around these lunch tables right now for this annual meeting. It used to be a joke that annual meetings were held in church with the doors locked, so that you get people in for the service and then you lock the doors and say, "Oh, by the way, it's annual meeting Sunday. Glad you're here. Look at this." We don't need to do that. But the really interesting, vital statistic to me is that we're having sort of a wave of adult connection and engagement. First of all, over the last year and a half, 2 adults and 1 teenager have come to me and asked to be baptized. 3, no, I'm wrong. I don't know how I forgot. Sally thinks I was counting her, but actually she's the other one. So 3 adults and a teenager. There are some more in the pipeline. You know, an Episcopal priest can go probably a whole lifetime ministry without doing 4 adult baptisms, and I'm doing 4 in 2 years and more. So Trinity is doing that, not just me, and it's great. And the sort of confirmation of that is that there are 8 adults in the confirmation class that's meeting right now. And that's because one of the teenagers who got, the teenager who got baptized back in the fall, Amelia Earnhardt, agreed with me that it would be kind of glum for her to prepare for baptism by herself. And so I said, let's see if there are any other of your classmates at Trinity who'd be interested in getting confirmed this year, because preparing a teenager for baptism is the same thing as preparing them for confirmation. So 2 of her friends and classmates joined in. The 3 of them will be confirmed. March 8th is one date, and a date in May is the other date. Depending on people's schedules, it'll be one or the other. And you know, once the ball got rolling, it turned out there are 8 adults who want to participate in that too. So that's all happening right now. And if you feel the same sort of vitality that John talked about, just when you're sitting in the pews, even when it feels like nobody is closer than 50 yards away because it's a big building and we all seem to like to have our own space, yet there's a sense of something ineffable going on. Well, you're not wrong. It's going on. So that's the sort of vital statistic that I want to call your attention to. But it's also worth noting that except when the internet fails, as it did today, 20 to 25% of our worshipers are attending online every Sunday. And similar numbers for the Sunday evening and Thursday evening and Wednesday noon services. All of our worship services are both online and in person. And the online part of the congregation is not just sort of an oddity. It's a part of the whole congregation. I say it on Sunday mornings, you know, to sort of acknowledge that for the people who are online so that they hear it acknowledged. But for those of us who are gathered here in person to talk about the state of the parish, I don't want you to just think that's window dressing. That's really true. 20 to 25% of every Sunday morning congregation is not visible to the people in the building, but they are very much part of the congregation. Also, just about those folks. Yes, we started getting, everybody online during the shutdown during the pandemic, right? And for 15 months we were online only. We all learned to regard Trinity as an online community. What we couldn't sort of know just from being part of the Sunday morning experience was that a good number of the people who came to Trinity online as soon as we started it at the beginning of the pandemic hadn't been to church in 10 years because of various personal issues. They weren't able to attend in person, and now they were able to attend church, having been unable to for years. And one of them is going to be acknowledged a little later on today, but her story is like that of many people. Because of health issues, she was not able to be at church in person, and this meant she could be, and so she's involved, right? I won't spoil it further than that. Let me shift gears and say that as a parish, we are in the midst of a large discernment process. And if you've been following the e-news or coming to annual meetings and the other information meetings, or have heard Mark Delabovi give an update from the Eagle during church over the last year, you know that we are seeking to map out a sustainable path into the future, a way for this congregation, which, although it is thriving, is much too small for the building. So we're finding a way that it can manage to manage the use and upkeep of the campus in a way that we can afford. The wardens will review where we are in that process, but I want to remind you of some concepts that have been guiding our discernment. Last year I spoke about 3 points made by a guy named Rick Reinhardt. He used to work in the mayor's office here in Buffalo. He helped start the medical campus, and he has gone on to live in other parts of the country, but has taken a special interest in the adaptive change and reuse of churches, or the adaptive use of church buildings. When you talk about reuse, you usually are talking about buildings that have been abandoned by the people who used them for their original purposes. We're not going anywhere. We're making adaptations so that Trinity can continue to anchor this building and the organizations that are in it. But we need to do that in some new and creative ways. So the 3 concepts that Rick Reinhardt pointed out, and I mentioned them last year, just a little refresher, that a space like ours has to go from being thought of as a private space to being thought of as a public space. Episcopalians tend to be a little delusional about that. We tend to think that everybody wants to belong to our church. Everybody's not here, right? This is a nice group, it's awesome, but this ain't everybody. And if we think that what we've got is everybody, then we're not thinking of this as a public space. Not everybody wants to do what we do. We get to do what we want to do, but we also get to share the building and make it a publicly accessible place for purposes, for specific uses that are consistent with what we do, but aren't necessarily the thing that we need to do. And so sharing this space as a public resource is a major shift in thinking. We are growing spiritually, I would say, so that part of our religious practice, as we practice religion here, is to share the building in non-religious ways. As an example, the buildings are rented to capacity by groups whose values and work are very much in line with those of the parish. And I, for one, am very proud of the work that goes on here because Trinity welcomes it. We also invite people to hold meetings and special events here, and so forth. A shift, I don't know if we're going to point it out anywhere else, so I'm just going to drop this in here. One of the people that we are electing to the vestry this year, Cindy Stroud, who's right there having lunch, she's a member of the staff at the Clean Air Coalition, whose offices are here in this building. So she's going to be a vestry member as somebody who is invested in the building rather than in the institution of Trinity Parish. And it's going to be great to have her input. And I hope we'll be able to grow in that real partnership with groups other than Trinity as we share the building more widely. So that's a very cool thing. So second, along with that concept, is the idea that we go from thinking about things in a simple way to thinking about things as complex. And ain't that the truth? In so many ways in our lives, I'm not even going down that road. Learning how to share the space among several different organizations while keeping the building's mechanical systems going on a shoestring budget is very complex, it turns out. And we're doing okay, and we're always entertaining fresh ideas about new ways that Trinity and our community partners can use the space here. Amazingly, we now have a food pantry that serves our neighbors several days a week. That's a classic church thing to do, right? And it's one of our tenants, or community partners, as I hope to say it all the time, but I want to make that connection. An organization that's here renting space from us, it's a tenant. It's also a community partner. Creative Restorations, they are the ones who have connected with Feed More and are getting 900 pounds of food a month through this place and into the hands of people who need it. One of their volunteers is Linda Wagner, I saw her in church this morning. Linda, are you here? There you are, yes. So she's here. I don't know if we have other Trinity folks volunteering at Creative Restorations, but we could. It's great. Justice for Migrant Families, we heard about from Sue's announcement earlier. They continue to serve some of our most vulnerable neighbors, and several Trinity parishioners, Sue first and foremost, but not the only one, volunteer to serve in the various ways that they do their work and on their board. And this is, of course, a particularly worrisome time for that organization and their clients. And so I'm really, really grateful to Jennifer for finding time next Sunday to come speak during the service. And if you were thinking, I went to church last week, maybe I won't go this Sunday, this coming Sunday will be a good day to go 2 Sundays in a row. Third of Rick Reinhardt's points, what worked yesterday is not working now. And what we can get to work today probably won't work tomorrow. So the plan will have to include the ability to change. Planning ourselves into being a changeable, adaptive organization is part of what will allow us to thrive and have a sustainable future. These 3 points are gospel. I don't mean that in the colloquial expression to say that they're true, they are, but that they are a way to share the love of God with our neighbors, which is why, I mean, if we just wanted to keep the building from falling down so people driving down Delaware Avenue could say, oh, isn't that pretty? You know, maybe somebody could do that. But we're doing it because this is a place that is perfectly suited to the kind of work that's going on here and that the city needs, that our neighbors need, and that people who want to do it find attractive to gather here and do it. So we are proving these 3 concepts here every day. And we need to work on turning them into a sustainable pattern. And we've done a lot of information gathering over the last 2 years, and we're getting to the point where we can start turning that into the plan. That will be what John and Erickson will touch on later. So let me now say a huge thanks to Colleen and to Krista and Paul and Rich. They are our principal staff members. They are amazing. Each of them is talented and devoted to what goes on here at Trinity, and each of them believes in what we're trying to do and help make it happen in all kinds of ways, seen and unseen. I also want to thank our resident caretakers, and that's a little bit of a moving target right now. So let me start by thanking last year's resident caretakers, Jay Ampalezzo, who's Rich's son, by the way, and Sarah and Denise were caretakers here for several years. Sarah and Denise had other opportunities come up and have moved to other places. And so we've seen Sarah and Denise leave, but Willow D'Agostino has just arrived, and Megan Arnold, who has been a caretaker here at different points and has been around for years as a sort of backup, they were the 2 who were here this morning. And so we're in good hands with a new crew. So thanks to the old crew, to Sarah and Denise in their absence. I appreciated so much what they did and missed them, but I'm grateful to Willow for moving here and to being here this morning and every day. Willow, by the way, uses they, them pronouns, and I hope you will greet them warmly and thank them for their help on Sunday mornings. It's also my deepest joy to thank all of the vestry for their dedicated work this year, particularly to Bing Sherrill, our treasurer, and Gretchen Lodick, our clerk, over there doing what clerks do, doing clerk things, and to our 2 wardens, John Alduino and Erickson Contreras. In addition to the vestry this past year, Trinity was also supported by another committee doing amazing work, the Saving Trinity Committee, which we named with a kind of alarming name to get your attention a year ago. I think it worked. They have done great work this past year. They are chaired by Mark Delabovi, and the committee includes Ann Conable, Sally Cook, John Gillespie, Hugh Russ, and Rick Spalding. Sally, you have to take the thanks for everybody. Mark would have been here, but he woke up feeling really cruddy this morning, and he said it is no longer fashionable to show up for a job feeling sick. That's over, right? So he stayed home, but Sally and I will do our best to field any questions as we go through the meeting, if that's needed. The committee did a lot of digging and fact-finding about what our options will be going forward, and have brought us to the point of making some choices among those options, and that will happen in the next couple of months. So that's my report on the parish's life over the last year. Now I need to shift your attention, and we're going to have to get creative because I didn't grab a stack of paper. Let's see if we can figure out how to do this. Colleen, I'm thinking if you can get one of those notepads that Ted always drops off, or get a couple. We just need blank note pieces of paper for people to use as ballots, and it's going to take me a minute to tell people what's going on, so you'll have a minute to find them. That would be awesome. As I've written in the e-news a few times, Trinity is a member of the Episcopal Diocese of Western New York, which is in partnership with the Episcopal Diocese of Northwestern Pennsylvania. And for 5 years, we shared a bishop. That partnership was such an innovative thing and so successful that the House of Bishops elected our bishop to preside over the House of Bishops for the next 9 years, which is great, except it means we're fresh out of bishops around here. Northwest Pennsylvania doesn't have one. We don't have one. They had him for a long time. He was 32 years old when he was elected Bishop of Northwestern Pennsylvania. He's been there quite a while. He was the youngest person ever elected bishop in the Episcopal Church. And it was, he was special then, he's special now, and it's not a real surprise that Sean Rowe was elected presiding bishop this summer. I miss him, though. I get to see him on Episcopal News Service and stuff like that. It's not the same. Anyway, now we have to decide how we want to go forward as these two dioceses. Do we want to continue to work in partnership with the other diocese to elect a shared bishop again? That's the first question. There are certainly ways in which we will continue to partner with the other diocese, even if we don't have a formal partnership. There are committees that merged between the two dioceses over the last 5 years, and they say we're not going back, even if we still have to work with two different bishops and two different standing committees and all of that stuff. The Commission on Ministry loves working together between the two dioceses and wants to continue doing that. And there are other parts of the life of a typical diocese that are shared jointly between the two and will continue to. But there are also ways in which we sort of made a formal partnership, and that's being evaluated right now. The first decision is, do we want to share a bishop? Everything else can be worked out on the basis of that. If we don't share a bishop, if we get separate bishops, we can figure out how to share the functions we want to share. If we do have one bishop and one diocesan partnership staff, then we'll do the sharing in different ways. So the first question to resolve is, do we share a bishop, or do we say to each other, Godspeed, go find a bishop on your own, we'll do the same, see you later. And then we'll figure out how to do other things later. So that's the decision that needs to be made now. It needs to be made, the date for that decision is May 3rd. It's coming up amazingly quickly, at least in the way, at the speed of church, that's no time at all. So there will be some talking, meeting, learning sessions. There will be some material reporting out on the evaluation of the partnership experiment. Our parish delegates will have chances between now and March 3rd to go to those conversations and to read that material, so that when we come to convention to vote on that decision, will we have one bishop or will we not, it'll be in an informed way. So because there's so much to do to get ready for this unusual convention, and there's a second convention in October, and the delegates serve for both, the vestry and I thought it would be best to cast the net as widely as possible to find 3 people. We're eligible to have 3 delegates, to find 3 people in the parish who have the time and the energy and the interest to serve in this way. I hope there are 3 of you here who want to do it, because we're going to pick them from here today. And I hope there aren't more than 4 or 5 or 6. Here's why. It turns out we can elect alternate delegates as well as the delegates. So we can elect 6 people. And what we'll do, you'll get a piece of paper, it's your ballot. In a minute, I'm going to ask anybody who is interested in being nominated to stand up. We'll go around, ask you to say your name so everybody can hear it. And once we have everybody who wants to be on the ballot identified, then I'll ask somebody to move that they all be nominated, and we'll nominate them as a group. And then you'll write down 3 of those names on your ballot. You can vote for 3 people. Jane?
What is the time involved?
The time involved is a bunch of reading between now and then. There are 2 meeting opportunities. I don't have the dates in my head, but they're in the e-news article that I published on Friday. There's one, I think, sort of the end of March, and then there's one the end of April. The 2 meetings, one is the one in March is an in-person meeting, might be a couple hours. The one in late April is on Zoom, and it's in an evening. You have 2 evenings to choose from, the 22nd or 23rd, I think. Okay. If Catherine can find an internet connection, she'll tell us what the dates are, because I did put them in the e-news. Yeah, Colleen.
What does the bishop do? Why do we need 2 versus 1?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, this is why we had this experiment. So there are 30 congregations in northwestern Pennsylvania, or maybe 32, I don't remember exactly. There are roughly 60 congregations in western New York. It turns out that one bishop can not only run an office, but also visit 90 congregations in a timely manner. The requirements of the canons are that the bishop visit every congregation at least once every 3 years. And so 90 bishops, you can get, say, 30 or 40 visits Sundays a year when you can visit churches, because they're not busy with Christmas or Easter or summer. So there are probably 30, maybe 35 or 40 Sundays a year when a bishop is visiting a congregation, and they can get around 90 congregations in 3 years. So visiting the congregations is one of the simple tasks that is at the center of Episcopal ministry. The bishop symbolizes and embodies the unity that all Christians have with one another in Christ. So we feel like a church here at Trinity, but we're actually part of the church. And the bishop is the embodiment of that connection to the rest of the Episcopal Church. And the Episcopal Church is good using its imagination and understanding that we are actually part of the whole Christian church, which is bigger than any denomination, even bigger than the Roman Catholic Church, and includes all Christians. Even as different and as far away as we are from each other, we are united in Christ. And the bishop symbolizes two things: the connection in the moment across space to each other, and the connection across time back to Jesus. In the Episcopal Church, in the Roman Catholic Church, in the Orthodox Church, and now in the Lutheran Church, our bishops have all been ordained by bishops who were ordained by bishops who were ordained by bishops, all the way back to the 12 who knew Jesus face to face. So the 12 apostles were the first bishops, and all of the bishops that they ordained others who ordained others back, and some of them are the bishops that we have now. So across time and across space, we have this person-to-person connection to the early church and to the followers of Jesus and to Jesus himself, and the bishop embodies that. In other practical terms, the bishop is the executive director of the organization of a region of Episcopalians called a diocese. You and I are not personally members of the diocese, our parish is. If a congregation is in communion with the bishop, then it is part of that diocese. And so that's why we need a bishop, because they are, in practical terms and in spiritual terms, the glue that connects us to all of our others. Now, somebody's just handed me an iPad, which is awesome.
Happy birthday.
Oh, here we are. Okay, so the dates of the events that you can participate are a listening day at the Diocesan Ministry Center in Tonawanda on March 1st, and that'll probably be like 9 to 3 or something like that. That's a Saturday. And then an evening Zoom session on March 27th, and then a pre-convention meeting really drilling down on how the convention is going to go and what you need to know to participate on either April 22nd or 23rd. You can choose either one of those. But the March 27th evening and the day time of March 1st are the availability that you would need to be able to participate. Any more questions about this? Yes, Gretchen. Oh, it's called listening. You know what? There has to be some talking in order to have something to listen to. It's a talking session. It's a time for people to get together and express their opinions about how the diocesan partnership experiment has gone, what their concerns are, what they're hoping happens, all that sort of stuff. So the standing committees are supposed to do the listening. We'll see if they can avoid feeling defensive and actually listen instead of try to explain everything. We'll see how that goes. I'm hopeful. They're doing great so far. All right. So, any more questions? Tim.
What if somebody had expressed interest
You want to nominate him? Okay. That's great. Yeah, Tim will nominate somebody else. Are you nominating yourself too? I couldn't hear that. No, okay. So when he stands up and says something other than Tim Lane, believe him for the moment. It's about the nomination process, not about who he is. All right? So he'll stand up and say somebody else's name. A mystery to me yet, but we'll all find out. Anybody else with another practical question or cosmic question? Gretchen.
So the second convention in October,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about what that's going to be about?
Yeah. So the second convention in October, which will be Friday the 10th and Saturday the 11th, or it's the 11th or 12th, I can't remember, but it's that weekend. Most of the day Friday and the morning into the early afternoon of Saturday of that second weekend in October is Diocesan Convention. Diocesan Convention elects members of standing committees and commissions on ministry and other committees that make things work for the diocese. They also approve a budget. Here in the parish, this is an interesting fact to know and share. In an Episcopal church, at annual meeting, the vestry presents the budget that they've approved for the coming year. So you're going to learn stuff, but you don't have to like it. At the diocesan level, you have to like it, and they have to get it so that you like it. So at diocesan convention, you vote to approve the budget and also to elect officers and committee members, and to hear a good talk from the bishop and stuff like that. Anything else? All right, so please, if you are interested in serving as a delegate to these two conventions, please stand. We have another one behind you. We have two, possibly three. Is there anybody else? It's a thank you, Barbara. Great. It's a demanding thing. So, go Amy. All right, we're up to 4 or 5, depending on whether Tim includes himself or not. I don't want to pressure anybody, but if you are thinking, oh yes, I really want to, but no, I don't need to, you could if you want to, or we can go with what we got.
Not me, but, who else was here?
We're going to find out.
Oh, it hasn't been meeting.
So, now, Tim, are you going out of the room right when I need you? All right, we're going to start with somebody else. Would you please say your name? Okay. I'm afraid you haven't. Yeah, you're. Yeah, that's fine. So who else was standing? Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah. At the back. Christina Kinney. And Amy, are you still standing or not? Say your name. Amy Alduino. Christina Kinney. Catherine Lincoln. Barbara Greisman. Is that everybody? No. All right. So we have 4 people nominated. We'll count the votes. We'll have 3 elected delegates and 1 alternate, which is a great situation to have. The alternate gets to come participate fully in all of the discussion that the delegation has at convention, and then the 3 people do the voting, and that's the only difference.
You just write down yes, or do we have to write down all 4 names?
Write down 3 names. That's how we sort out who is the alternate and who are the regular 3. Write 3 of those 4 names. Catherine Lincoln, Barbara Greisman, Amy Alduino, Christina Kinney.
First names are good enough, right?
First names are good enough. Yes, I'll say them again. Christina Kinney, Amy Alduino, Barbara Greisman, Catherine Lincoln. Just pick 3. Just pick 3. Doesn't matter what order. And then we'll count how many times each name comes up. The top 3 will be the delegates, and the 4th person will be the alternate. What do you think? Is everybody ready? Hold your ballot up if you're ready. And if you're not ready, keep writing. I'm sorry, what? You're collecting. Great, thank you. The collector is coming around with a basket, which is awesome. All right, so in this amazing way that we seem to organize around a task spontaneously, if you want to help Colleen count ballots, she's getting ready to go do that. But I think I need the wardens to stay here because they're going to take over now.
Yes. And then we can announce when we announce the
Yeah.
whatever? Okay. Matt is a Chicago native, so we always say, you know, vote like you do in Chicago, which is early and often. Right? All right. So we are going to go through, and one other thing I learned about from Matt as I was doing the vestry work is a term called the speed of church, which I had not ever heard before. What you're going to hear, what has happened over the next 2 years, is not that. There's been a ton of moving parts in the last 23, 24 months, and this has moved pretty smoothly as we move forward and trying to get to the point where we'll be making a decision here pretty soon. So, Erickson and I, on the back of your agenda, you have a colorful chart. And we're going to split that up and talk to you actually what's happened over the last 24 months, the last couple of years.
About 2 years ago is when we got our first updates on the financial status of the church. That was the beginning of our financial crisis, really. It was in February of 2023 when we found out that our long-term tenant for the parking lot on Franklin Street, Lawley Insurance Agency, they were pulling out after years of renting that parking lot to their employees. That was a loss of $85,000. And around the same time, we found out that the year-end results for 2022 included an investment loss of $134,000. So that was a big hit for our congregation, our church, starting 2 years ago. And then as a result of that, in this meeting 2 years ago, we had a big brainstorming session to think, what can we do, big and small, to turn things around for the future of our church. And that's when we just really, it was a brainstorming session, things, all kinds of ideas. We gathered those ideas as a starting point to see what we can do long-term to save Trinity. And then soon after that, we had an online survey, you may remember, where basically we were asking all the members of the congregation, what are your gifts, what are your talents, your treasure, how much time do you have to get involved in anything, any new initiatives to help with our financial crisis. And so that survey started in the spring of 2 years ago and went out until about the fall. And then we had a semi-annual meeting where we shared the results of that survey. Also happening in 2023 is we asked the congregation to help financially. We had a challenge grant, and the congregation stepped up and raised $85,000 by the end of the summer of 2023 to help the church with the day-to-day operations of the church. So all that happened in 2023, and John will tell you what followed.
So, like Erickson said, we had after the challenge grant, we had a meeting similar to this where we did we presented the survey results. And then around November, December, we started gathering support and information from trustful sources like about adaptive change for churches from Trinity Wall Street and other experts. We had some folks come here, some consultants that come to the church, and we started to form some information so that we could then form what we affectionately have called Saving Trinity 2.0 Committee, which we recognized that Mark Delabovi was the chair of, and all those smart people that he mentioned were part of that as well. They went over and really, I participated in several of their meetings and did an incredible job of kind of sorting out all of the different ideas that we had amongst the congregation to bring them down just to what was feasible, most fruitful for the church. And then in November of this year, I think it was November, but just recently, Mark came and they put together a very nice report, which they presented to the vestry. And so what the vestry is going to be doing now is, as we talked about the decision-making process as we move forward with this, we wanted to make sure that we had some good parameters around what we could use to make the decision to move forward with this project. So we're going to get together in March, the vestry and other folks that have been involved with this from the beginning, and have an outside facilitated discussion on having some folks help us decide our points in the road where we need to think about before we move forward with a decision. So that's going to happen in March, and then hopefully we'll have, shortly after, if not at the end of that meeting, decide on where we want to go. And just briefly, the decisions and the information boiled down is that the projects were to use our parking lot in the back of the church to create some low-income housing and create some low-income housing on that building, on the parking lot, which is empty space. And the 393 building would be the option of that is to either to retain that building and aggressively look at more tenants in the building, or sell the building. And then the other option, along with the parking lot, would be to outright sell it as well. So we've got a couple of options that we need to look at that either look at providing some low-income housing and finding a partner on that lot to do that, selling it outright. Same thing with 393, either selling or doing some work to bring in some new tenants in that. So our goal, Erickson's goal, because I'm done here in about 45 minutes. Now, Joanne and Erickson's goal will be to, seriously, we're going to make sure that we have been all along this process to be as transparent as possible to you all. And as we get information as to what we're doing, and also part of that would be providing information, but making it a two-way street. We're making where we can get information from you all as well. So that's kind of where we are in the process. There'll be more to come. That's in a nutshell where we are right now. I do want to, again, as Matt did, commend the Saving Trinity 2.0. They did an amazing job. So yeah, we can give them a hand. Thank you. So that kind of in one page is 2 years of work. So certainly, if you have any questions. We're always around after church. You can always do that. Or okay. So I think we're.
Will there be a real brief summary of the current status that you put out on the e-news in the next little while?
Yeah, we can, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I think that's a great idea. That would be a good way to kind of tie all this up, is to put where we are in writing as opposed to one graphic, right? So we'll commit to do that, absolutely. Yeah, all right. Okay, so that is item number 6, Warden's Report on Trinity Adaptive Change, the planning process. More information to come, and now we're going to move on to the finance report. And Bing has decided to do this interpretive dance, so let's give him a hand for that. No, he won't. Okay.
Good morning. I'm going to be working from the sheet that looks like this, if you have them. Basically, it's finance I think of as important, but it's really something that's in background to the mission of the church. So in the original schedule, I was going to be first, and I thought that's an overstressing of the financial situation. So I'm going to go through 3 things. One is the balance sheet, a set of historical income numbers, and then the 2025 budget. So the first page is the Trinity balance sheet. On the left-hand side, you have assets. On the right-hand side, you have liabilities. In other words, what you have and what you owe. It's the same as most any organization. Going down a couple of things, you'll notice the bank account says $184,000. That's a high number because at the end of the year, we get lots of people make their gifts at that point. It's also a high number because we try to hold in that fund the coverage of the temporarily restricted funds that you all have given to, say, support the windows or support the building or specific things. And the reason we do that is twofold. One is if you put the money in the a community foundation, which is the 3rd line down, if you put it in that area, it takes us about 6 weeks to get money back out. And if somebody has just put up new signs and want to get paid from their restricted funds, it takes too long. The second reason is because our giving pattern goes up and down during the course of the year, and our spending pattern does too. And so we have to have some cushion there, which that serves at that too. So that bank account, this is probably the highest that it is all year, but sometimes it ducks down to the 80s and 90s. Accounts receivable is nothing much. The CFGB is Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo. That's our endowment, investment account, whichever way you want to see it. Fixed assets are kind of an interesting thing. You'll see at the bottom, I was curious myself, so we put down what they are. Buildings, $4 million. That's not too surprising. It would be 40 million now. But so that's the numbers and the depreciation against it, which gives you the net assets. Again, back up into the asset list, leading the total. So let's go over and look at the liability side on the right-hand side. Current liabilities, this is bills that we have to pay. So that's something that will cycle in and out. That's also a little larger number than it normally is, but it moves around. Permanently restricted to $777,000 is funds that people have given and said, don't spend it, just use an income for it. Temporarily restricted is where people have said, spend it, but spend it on this particular subject, so we don't use it for day-to-day operations. The fixing of 393 was one of them, the signage out front, a number of different smaller projects. Certainly the windows fall into that. Then after those are left over, then is the equity line. This is like owner's equity for all of us. Now, the one important thing, you see the little tiny numbers in there, that's a total of what we have in the bank account, accounts receivable, and the community foundation account on one side, $1,034,000. And the other side, it's what we owe current, and we owe the money to the permanently restricted money. We owe that as an obligation to the givers, just as we owe the temporary money. So those two numbers are important to balance, and I'm delighted to see they're $56,000 more that we have than what we owe. It's always good to be that way. Okay. Now, shifting to the next page, which is too many numbers, but that's all right, we won't deal with all of them. This is just to give you background numbers. Don't need to read them all. I'm just going to make a few points in it. Erickson mentioned earlier about losing the parking. You can see the parking income there on the first line going across and then taking a cataclysmic drop. Another one is the offerings at the bottom of the first batch. And you can see that's been fairly stable. In 2023, we had a big input, and that was from the matching gifts fund. Let's see, one more. Oh, fair share. Second from the bottom of the second group, fair share, that's the amount that we send to the diocese. And you can see that it grew, and then the last few years it's been stable. We have to negotiate that. The calculation of it comes out with a number that's bigger than I think we can afford. But we paid $31,000 last year, and I think we can easily do that again this year. Under that, there's a little thing that says ERC. This is the employee retention credit. This is the amazing number that we received in little pieces, actually, through the late November and December from the government for keeping our employees employed through the bad times of 2021-22. It was an astounding number, great surprise to me, 4 times as much as I ever expected it to be, but it's there. The other thing I would mention here in the second to last column under by maintenance, it says $108,000. That's because we lost our main boiler this year and had to replace it. And it occurred to me looking at this sheet, we've had 2 disasters in the last few years. One is the loss of the elevator and the other is the loss of the boiler. But we've also had 2 miracles in the sense, economic miracles, the $58,000 for the PPP that we got in 2020, and then the related ERC additional funds this year. So maybe disasters are sometimes followed by miracles too. So. It's a negative number, so it's negative against the payroll. In fact, that was why it was hard to see, because in the reports they had told me that it was there, but I couldn't find it because they put it in, and I kept saying, why are the payroll costs going down month by month? Aren't we paying anybody? And they said, oh, no, we're putting that in. So sometimes it's hard to read what the numbers are. Okay, finally, the last page is actuals from 2024, and I had proposed, but we did pass it, budget for 2025. The cautionary thing here is when we had to put together the budget, we didn't know what was going to happen to December. So in this, I'm a bit optimistic on the offerings and at 348. But it'll be a challenge, like offerings often are. The special offerings is at least my hope that we have a challenge grant or something again this year. In maintenance, you'll see the 108 dropping to 50,000. That's because I'm pretty sure we won't have another furnace go down this year. And we do have a big one in this basement as well as the one over in that basement, so it's a possibility. The ERC is the employee retention credit. That's why it's still negative, Judy. But we won't get that again. So then the total expense, loss on operations. Now at the bottom, the investment income, you can see it has only 35,000 in it. We had 69,000. That's pretty much a guess. The 35,000 was is about a 4% return. Last year we had more like a 8 or 9% return. So it could be higher, but all I was looking for in this is to balance out the number. So hopefully we will get all the other numbers, but if they're a little lower, we know that that one should be higher, but it's, one never knows. So saving Trinity, which we were talking about and probably do more about, that will have some impact on this, and we'll make some adjustments during the course of the year, and of course we'll bring it back and everybody will see it. Or I'll write it on Fridays. Yeah.
So we have any questions for Bing? Let's give Bing a round of applause. That's the hardest thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
All right, now on to some fun things and some thank yous. And, we just wanted to, like I said, Tim, what is this again? Church, steeple? People, that's right. Okay. This place doesn't run without volunteers and people and things that help, and I know you all helped in every way you could, but we wanted to give a shout out to a few people who did some really special things this year and continue to do them. The first on the list is Connie, who I think is back in the kitchen. So let's give her a round. Oh, where is she? Oh, there you are. All right. Chicken dinner was outstanding. All right, eat more chicken. That's what I got to say. Jess Polian, where are you, Jess? Basket raffle was wonderful. Scheduled for next year, both of these things. Once you do a good job once, you got to do it again. That's the thing. Yep. So, and a couple of things. Julie Rizzo, for those of you who don't know, is the voice of our Trinity Online. So she is the one during the chat that will say, welcome, here's the program bulletin for the week, and responds to everybody online, and it just basically our greeter and all things awesome online. So Julie, if you're watching, thank you very much. We appreciate you. And yes, and then we have a couple. The other thing related to Trinity Online is something we call our cyber sacristans. Basically, are people who make sure that everything is working online, so that people like me who live in the village of Lewiston and sometimes can't make it here can worship. So, I would like to thank Christian Eshelman and Barbara's here, Barbara Griezmann. And June Norzer and Karen Salvitz, who do it at 7 p.m. Or is June or Karen here? I don't know. Let's thank them and please. And of course, our chief sacristan and now deacon and just a heck of a nice guy, Jeff Took. Thank you all for what you do. We hope you see yourself somewhere in Trinity in the next year.
Thank you, John. And thank you to all of you who help out. The last person we want to recognize is our 2024 Volunteer of the Year. This individual is involved in a lot, so much that I had to write it down, so to make sure I don't miss anything. Tim Lane, will you please join me up here? So Tim basically grew up in this church, and Tim last year either led or assisted with or was somehow involved in just about every event that we had here. Okay? Tim coordinated Krista's concert series last year. There were 4 shows. He's hoping to do it again. Also, he co-leads with Jeff the Wednesday evening discussion group that's online. That's been going on for 2 years, 3 years?
No, 4.
4 years.
We're on year 5.
Okay, 5 years. Tim hosts and does the reading for Trinity at 7 on Sundays. He helps to organize counters and announcers for Sunday's service from the vestry. He sings in the choir, is section leader, and also is an acolyte. He organizes Halloween parties. He helps with the Allentown Festival every year, including selling Trinity merchandise, greeting people when they come in at the door, and collecting the cash donations. Also, he did help out with every single fundraiser we had last year, except for the basket raffle. He needed a day off, right? Oh, I'm sorry, but he attended. So, okay. And he started a family choir that ended in a show last December. And also, he's just today completing his second 3-year term in the vestry. Tim, did I leave anything out? Anything? Okay. So everybody, another round of applause for Trinity, our Volunteer of the Year. Thank you, Tim. Yes, standing ovation. Thank you, Tim. Okay, we're moving right along. Next is the much anticipated results of the election for the new members of the vestry. We had about 65 vote online. Again, this vote was just to reaffirm the candidates that the 4 candidates who are joining the vestry. When I call your name, please stand up. Joanne Sandell. Our new junior warden. Cynthia Stroud. Please stand up, Cynthia. New vestry member. Jess Polian. Please stand up. Co-chair of the basket raffle, chair of the basket raffle. And finally, Jane Kearns. Thank you, Jane. These 4 individuals combined have decades of professional experience in working for local government, local not-for-profit, higher education, owning a small business, private real estate, and so many other things. Their skill, their knowledge will be invaluable to the vestry as we forge ahead with a long-term financial plan for Trinity to make us a sustainable congregation. So thank you, the 4 of you, for joining. Look forward to working with you, alongside with you for the next, well, for me it's only a year, but for the 3 of you, you're stuck doing this for 3 years. Just kidding. So thank you. new members. And with new members joining, then we have to say goodbye to our current members who've been served for the last 3 years, really. So I would like to, on behalf of Trinity, I would like to thank our outgoing vestry members, starting with our outgoing senior warden, John Alduino. Also, outgoing vestry member Tim Lane. And finally, Megan McElfresh. She could not be here with us today. The three of you in the last year and longer, really, have been invaluable members of the vestry. John, our meetings were always more or less on time, thanks to you. Yes, thank you, Matt. More on time than that normally would have been. And also, John brought a lot of humor to our meetings. He tried to keep things light because vestry meetings, we're discussing the business of the church, right? So it's very dry, a lot of numbers sometimes, serious discussion. But John always made it, keep it fun. So thank you, John, for your leadership. You leave big shoes to fill. Big shoes to fill. I hope I have the feet to fill them. And Tim, what can I say? Volunteer of the year. The passion that Tim has in all the events that he participated or led, he brings the same passion to vestry meetings. He's always quick to remind us that we need to remember the congregation, how to grow and strengthen the congregation. It's not just about the business aspect of the church. So thank you, both of you, and thank you, Megan, for your years of service. And I'll miss working with you all in the vestry. And with that, Matt, do we need the results of the delegate count? Yes, one more item.
So Amy and Christina and Barb will be delegates, and Catherine will be alternate. So thanks to all four of you for being willing to take on a big and meaningful thing. So I think I might as well say, God bless you all. Go in peace. I think we're done, yes? Yes, we're done.
Have a enjoy the rest of the weekend, everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you for all you do for Trinity Church.